He said, "Oh, I do want one thing." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I want a hug from my baby." And he always said, "Not baby, baby." And I said, "I'm going to give you all the hugs I can." And then I had been praying that for him to come home. I wanted him home for Valentine's Day. And that was my prayer. He went home, but it wasn't where I was expecting. I'm Sharon Judy. I'm from Paris, California. Well, with the pandemic raging since 2020, I felt now was a good time to tell my story about how my husband contracted the virus and how it changed my life. I thought it would inspire someone. Well, my husband's name was Carl Judy. He was my soulmate. We were married 18 and a half years. He was a 20-year military veteran. He served 20 years in the U.S. Air Force, and I met him approximately 3 weeks after he retired in 1999. He was on his way back to move to Texas, and we met just before he moved back, and we stayed together the entire time that we were married, and until the Lord called him home. Well, I went to a birthday party. I was supposed to have a date at that birthday party, and my date, about 2 hours before the party, he kind of flaked out on me and told me he had to keep his grandkids. And I get to the birthday party. It was actually for a friend of mine, her husband, who happened to be Carl's uncle, and it was his 50th birthday party. And he and I met that night, and we were literally by one another's side from that moment on. And so I was glad that the other guy had backed out and wasn't able to come on the date. I was by myself. I wasn't even looking to date anyone, just out to have a good time. The funny thing is I had been single, had been by myself for a number of years, and I had decided for this birthday party I didn't want to go by myself. And as fate and God would have it, that was the night I met him. September 11th, 1999. I was dressed, I was like I said, I hadn't quite turned 40 yet, so I still was a young tender. And so I'm sitting on the couch with my leg perched up, and I'm just like this, sitting back smiling. Someone got a picture of me sitting there like that, and they got a picture of him standing in the doorway looking over at me. And so I have that picture on our mantle. There's two different pictures, because they got a picture of him and a picture of me, but I have that picture on my mantle, and every time I walk by it, I just start laughing because I remember that night. Like I said, it wasn't even supposed to end that way. I was supposed to be with somebody else, but it ended totally different. So we talked for 4 hours. We were at a birthday party, but we were oblivious to anything going on around us. And so our actual first date was at the grand opening of the Staples Center. And I didn't realize the Staples Center had been in existence for as long as it had until I started flipping through some pictures. And it's like, that was about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after we met. And that was our first official date. It was a grand opening, so there was lots of food, there were vendors. I wasn't a big sports fan, but just knowing that this was going to be the place where basketball games were held, and just something new in the city of Los Angeles was just, it was like a carnival feel. It was a lot of fun. So we spent the day there just looking at the sights and having a good time. We were together almost 3 years. It's funny that he had actually gone ahead and moved to Texas. He was in Texas for about 9 months, and he came back for Christmas of 2002. I'm sorry, Christmas of 2001. And I had thought to myself, I'd already made up in my mind, he didn't seem like he was moving fast enough. I really liked him and it seemed like we were getting along well, and he hadn't made any moves to take the relationship to the next level. And I had decided, well, this is going to be our last Christmas together, but I had not told him. And so we got back on, I think, December 23rd, or maybe even Christmas Eve. He knocks at my door. He has his big red bow on, like he's my Christmas present. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know there better be more than this, just you standing on the other side of my door. So the next day we get up, we go Christmas shopping. He took me to look at jewelry. He didn't say rings, he just said jewelry. And so we went to several different malls. It's a complete zoo because it's Christmas Eve. And so we go to the different malls, and I kept looking at jewelry. I'd look at earrings, and I'd go over to the rings and try to give him a little subtle hint. He kept pulling me away to look at tennis bracelets. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely our last Christmas together, our last time together, period. I'm gonna wait till the day after Christmas. That's gonna be his surprise. The day after Christmas was me saying adios. And so the next morning we get up, and the kids had opened their presents, and we had breakfast, and I'm thinking, this is really gonna be it. I'm gonna miss this guy, but it was okay. Anyway, a little before noon, he pulls this box out of his pocket. So apparently he had this ring the entire time. He'd actually bought it in Texas and then proposed to me on Christmas Day of 2001. So he saved Christmas.
So did you guys have kids prior to you guys getting together? Were you married before? What did
Both of us were married before. I was actually almost 40. And so this was the second time around for both of us. Our kids were, I had, my daughter, I think, was an adult already at that time. And his kids were a little bit, two were younger and one was a little bit older than my daughter. And so everybody, it was his, mine, and ours. And so it was, like I said, I watched them open their presents, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even think he had anything for me other than the ring. And so I'm thinking to myself, really? And then there's no present. Okay, yes, sir, got it. We got married on a Friday evening, May 10th, 2002. I keep wanting to say 2002. First, we started off with, we were just going to get married in our pastor's office, and then we said, well, let's get married in the sanctuary. And then it's like, well, if we get married in the sanctuary, we could do it after church. Had a lot of thoughts in mind, and decided to do it on a Friday with couple of hundred of our closest friends, and that's the way it actually ended up. It's like, well, we can't invite this person without inviting these people, and so co-workers and family and everybody we could think of was there. And so it was a beautiful wedding. He sang the wedding song to me by Smokey Robinson. It was a song I had never even heard before, and after he sang the song, my pastor got choked up, and he says, I've never heard a gentleman sing to the bride. It's always somebody else or the bride singing to the groom. And then we did something else different. So rather than me walking down the aisle, I came in through one side door, and he came in through another side door, and we met in the middle as a symbol of us meeting one another halfway. And then my two kids were, my daughter was the maid of honor, and my son was the man of honor, and then his son was the best man. So we just did things, we did it our way. And so we were old enough at that point where we didn't have to follow tradition, and we didn't have to do any of that. And we actually had one of the women in our church actually read the symbolism of why we decided to meet in the middle. And so it was a beautiful experience on a Friday evening. But what's interesting about holidays, and it's not really, well, we made it a holiday. So we got married on the 10th of May. And so every month on the 10th of every month from the time that we got married, we said happy anniversary to one another. So for 18 plus years, every month on the 10th, we wished one another happy anniversary. The funny thing about that is it became a competition to see who would remember first. So sometimes I would set an alarm, so I'd wake up early and wake him up and tell him happy anniversary. And then every once in a while he would wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'm sound asleep, and he'd wake me up, baby. I said, yeah, happy anniversary. I'm like, and then sometimes I would forget the next morning. Well, as God would have it, the day before my first anniversary without him, which was May 2001, I was looking for something. I looked everywhere you could think of. So I looked in my nightstand, and I never used my nightstand. And there was actually a handwritten note from him that said, "Happy anniversary, I got you." And it had a smiling face on it. Well, the interesting thing about that, and that was actually 2 pieces of paper. I don't even remember how long ago, and I don't know what made me keep those 2 pieces of paper, but he had laid them on my side of the bed on the floor so that when I got up that morning, I would see it and he knew that he won. And so, but I have I framed them, and I have them hanging in my office because now they mean the world to me. So when I first looked at the note, "Happy anniversary, I got you," with the smiling face, I said, doggone it, even in death, he got me again. And then a couple of days later, I had such a peace because I realized, I've got you. Don't worry about anything. I've got you. So.
And Sharon, I just want you to repeat this date just because I know you said May 10th, 2001, but it was May 10th, 2021, right?
We got May, I found the note, May 10th. May 9th, the day before my anniversary. As a matter of fact, my mom and I and my best friend and her mom, we were going to Palm Springs. They didn't want me to be alone on my anniversary. And so I'm packing, getting everything together. And like I said, I found this note and I snapped a picture of it, May 9th, 2021, the night before my actual anniversary, which would have been my 19th anniversary. And I snapped a picture of it and I sent it to my daughter. And she says, LOL. And she says, "Wait, are you laughing or are you crying?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm actually laughing." And I said, "This man got me again." So yeah. So like I said, now it's important to me to see that every time I walk in my office, I see it hanging up. I got you. So let's see here. Well, the funny thing is, because we spent every moment together. It was just a fun time. I think. When we first moved to the Riverside area, we found this really, really nice restaurant there. And then I think it was Dwayne's in the Mission Inn Hotel. And we did it big that very first time that we were there. And then we decided, we just preferred dinners at home, where just the 2 of us. And then my grandson, who is now 15, lives with us, and he became the third wheel. And he's my husband's best friend. And so Valentine's dinner became the 3 of us. And so my husband actually passed away on Valentine's Day 2021, and it was, of course, a shock, first of all, and that very first Valentine's Day by myself, 2022, I was actually in Arizona. I spent the weekend in Arizona with another really good friend of mine and her family, and I made my flight reservation to get back home in time to go to the cemetery first. And I was like, that's the first I've never spent an anniversary without him, or Valentine's Day without him, and so I made my reservation to get back to LAX in time to get to the cemetery. And then I stopped by the store and I got steak and salmon and was gonna make a baked potato. And I rushed home, and my grandson, I think at this point is 14, maybe 15. And I'm all excited to, carry on the tradition and have steak and shrimp and sit down and have dinner with him. He's like, looks at me like a typical teen boy. That was your tradition. He says, "I don't want steak." And I was crushed. And I thought about it. I was like, okay, he's right. So we're making new traditions. I don't even remember what we did. We may have even ordered pizza this year. But that was the memory, that I had with Carl. And so, like I said, my grandson, wanted to do something different. But, it was us together again, my grandson and I. And so we still keep my husband's name alive. Every day we have something to laugh about what Pawpaw did or Pawpaw said. And so it's like he's still here. My girlfriend and I had gone to Palm Springs, And we stayed at this resort that she and her husband and Carl and I loved to stay at. It was 2 or 3 couples, sometimes 4. Every couple of months we go and spend a few days there. And she and I had taken her daughter for her 30th birthday, and Carl had some friends at the house, and they had shot a couple of, I think they had shot a short film, and I wasn't home. So a few days after I got back, he was coughing, and even though we knew what the symptoms of COVID-19 were, we really hadn't been anywhere. Even when I was in Palm Springs, we really stayed in the resort. We stayed away from people, and he coughed and wasn't feeling well. And about a weekend, maybe a week and 3 days, he finally says, "If I don't feel any better tomorrow, I'm going to make an appointment." And I knew then that he was sick because he didn't make his own appointments. I made all the appointments. And so the next morning, he got up, and as a matter of fact, I asked him if he wanted me to buy Theraflu. We swore by Theraflu whenever we had a cold or whenever we got sick. And so I went and bought some Theraflu because I wasn't feeling well either. And because it was cold symptoms, it was flu-like symptoms. And so I asked him, did he want to take some Theraflu? And he said no. And so the next morning he got up and I came and sat at the dining room table. And I said, well, I'll make your appointment for you. So I put the nurse on speakerphone, and he sat and listened. And so she told me, she says, don't bring him in here. Take him to the emergency room. They weren't allowing people to, if you had flu-like symptoms, and even you think about what you would see on the doors, if you're coughing or have flu-like symptoms, please don't come in or what have you. And so it took him to Kaiser in Riverside, and as we're walking, he kept slowing down. As a matter of fact, before we left for the doctor, he had been in bed for a few days, and I told him, I said, well, go ahead and take your shower. And then I kept going in the bedroom, and he hadn't gotten in the shower yet. And I just figured, he was hesitant about going. And so at first I was, got a little annoyed. I was like, baby, come on. I said, you got to get up, take your shower. And so he gets in the shower, and then he's sitting on the edge of the bed. I go back in there, he's sitting on the edge of the bed, and he looked, he looked bad, he looked weak. And so I said, well, what's wrong? He said, I almost passed out in the shower. He said, I just got really, really weak. And so I called his son to come in, and I said, well, do you want Marcus to help you to the car? And him being a man, he says, no, I'll go to the car on my own. And so it took him a while to get to the car. But we headed on over to the hospital, and like I said, we were walking across the parking lot, and he was kind of hesitant. I said, do you want me to get a wheelchair? And I never thought he would have said yes. And so I'm like, geez, he really is sick and he is weak. So I went and got the wheelchair from the front desk, and I brought it back out to him. I had him have a seat. I brought the wheelchair in to him, wheeled him in, and of course I couldn't go in. And so I went and sat in the parking lot because I thought they were going to prescribe something for him, and then I'd take him home. And I was in the parking lot for about an hour, and he sends me a text, and he says, they're running tests. I think that's what he said. And I said, well, make sure they run a COVID test. He said they already did. And so what's interesting is 2 weeks before he went in the hospital, we had our first COVID test ever, and they were negative. And so I sat in the parking lot, and a few minutes later, he sends me a text, and all he said was positive. And I'm like, crap. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, him being positive, he's still going to be okay. So I sat and waited, and then a nurse called me, and she says, we're going to transport him over to another hospital because we don't have any beds. And so I said, well, I'm still here in the parking lot. I said, I can take him. And the nurse says, no, we'll take him by ambulance. And so I said, well, let me know what hospital. So I go on over to the hospital, and I still couldn't go in. And so that set off the next 19 days of up and down. So for the first maybe 10 days, he was his numbers were good as far as his pulse rate. I think his heart rate, it'd be good, and then it'd not be so good, and they tell him he need to lie on his stomach to help with his breathing. And some days I'd ask, did you turn on your stomach? He says no, and he's like, it was just getting hard to breathe. And so didn't want to fuss at him, but it's like, if they're telling you that's what's going to help you, then you need to lie on your stomach. It was taking too much out of him. And so at one point he asked me, do you think I have that new strain of COVID? And I said, I really don't know. And at that time, it's almost a year into COVID. There were so many people dying, just never thought that it was going to affect our house. I still kept expecting him to come home. And so about the 10th day that he was in there, he started complaining about his arm was hurting. The doctor had told me that he had developed lung clots. So all the typical symptoms and ailments that COVID patients would get at that time, he got them all. He had pneumonia, he had the blood clots, I forget what all he had. And so my husband's sister had just retired as a nurse in Texas. And so anytime the doctor would call me, I'd get her on three-way, and she'd listen into everything, and then we'd get off. She'd ask her all the right questions. We'd get off the phone, and then she'd put it in layman's term what the doctor had basically said. And so when they gave him the blood thinners to help hopefully dissolve the clot, the doctor said, well, with the blood thinners, he's liable to start excreting blood from anywhere. I'm like, what do you mean anywhere? Like, where? And she said, from anywhere there's an opening. Could be his eyes, could be his nose, could be his bottom, could be anything. So he started complaining about his arm was hurting. So we were thinking that the nurse had put the IV incorrectly, and it had caused an injury. And he kept saying, this arm is swelling up larger than the other one. And so took about a day and a half. As a matter of fact, I want to say it was Super Bowl Sunday, 2021. I sent him a text and asked him, was he watching the game? I want to say that his favorite team, Dallas Cowboys, I want to say the Cowboys were playing that day. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong, but anyway, he wasn't really very talkative. And so I kind of left him alone. We kept saying his arm was hurting, and the pain wasn't going away. What we found out was that the blood was pooling in his arm. And so when they finally did the x-ray, that's when they found out it was pooling with blood. And so they said, well, we might have to amputate his arm. And we're thinking, whatever it's going to take, to save his life, then we'll do that. So the next day, they scheduled him for surgery, and he didn't want to have the ventilator, because I don't know what the connection was at that time between someone going on a ventilator and them never coming off. They seem to pass more rapidly. And so he said, I don't want to go on the ventilator. So the doctor called me, and the surgeon, and he says, well, your husband doesn't want to be on the ventilator. He said, but there's nothing we can do about that. I said, there's no way you can give him the surgery without the ventilator. He said, he's going to feel everything we do if we don't put him out. So right before he went in, right before he went into surgery, they decided just to put a couple of openings here to see if that would release some of the blood. So they didn't actually amputate it. So that night, I went and sat in the parking lot during the surgery, and he went into the recovery room. He went through the surgery fine, went to the recovery room. So I called that night into ICU. And I talked to the nurse there on the floor, and she says, we made it through the surgery fine. He's actually talking to the doctor and the nurse right now. And I said, well, I'll let him rest. I will call him tomorrow. I said, let him know I called, and I'll call him tomorrow. And so what's interesting is earlier that day when he got ready to have the surgery, he's telling me he didn't want to be on the ventilator. And he said his last thing to me was, tell my family I love them. He's very big on family. And so I pulled over, I called his sister, and so we had prayer with him. And so, like I said, that night, I get a call after the surgery. Like I said, a few hours before, he had awakened from the anesthesia, talking to the doctor and nurse. They said he had slipped into a coma, just that fast. And I'm like, how did it go from 3 hours ago? I went to sleep thinking, I'll talk to him tomorrow. He slipped into a coma. And the next day, they said, it doesn't look good. This is like February 7th, maybe. Doesn't look good. Don't think he's going to make it through the night. And so the next day they allowed us to, on Zoom. We invited our family and closest friends to come on Zoom. They had a computer or iPad there in the room. They allowed us to say goodbye to him, and which was in my mind, I hadn't really told our friends. I said, "Hey, we're doing a Zoom with Carl at 12," and in their minds, "Oh, Carl's okay." And so a friend of mine told me afterwards, I guess I just wasn't thinking. A friend told me afterwards, she said, I looked on the camera and saw him in the bed. She says, "Oh, it's one of those." And I just, like I said, I hadn't even thought to prepare anybody. The day before, I told them, they said he's in a coma. It doesn't look like he's going to do well. The next day, I sent a text. "Here's the Zoom information. We're going to Zoom with Carl at 12. I didn't even think to say we're going to say goodbye. And so everybody was on, and it was beautiful. And I still believe, he got a chance to hear everything. And so for the next week, believe it or not, he hung in there. And so every morning and every night, I'd call the hospital, ask the nurse if she'd put the iPad in there next to him. I'd sing, I'd pray with him, play some of our favorite music. I played jazz, I played gospel, I read scriptures. I did this twice a day for a good after he slipped into the coma until he passed away. And so that was on a Monday morning, I think, Monday evening or Tuesday, I think, that we had the family and friends gather around on Zoom. So from that Tuesday to that Sunday, I got a chance to just spend one-on-one time with him on Zoom. And so one day, on a Thursday, I got dressed up. I had makeup on. He loved leopard print. I put on this pretty leopard top that he liked, and I get on Zoom. So this new nurse comes and puts the iPad in the room. I said, "Do you mind muting it?" I said, "The other nurses usually mute while I'm talking to him." And this nurse says, "Oh, it's okay. There's not going to be any noises around here. You might hear the machine every once in a while." So I'm singing, and I played our wedding song. That was the last thing that I was playing. And I'm playing the song, and I said, "Baby, do you remember this?" I said, "This is what you sang to me at our wedding." And so I'm playing it, and I thought I heard a noise, and so I looked at my phone. There's nobody there. I mean, there was nobody on the phone or on my computer. And then all of a sudden, there's a nurse. I see the nurse's face, and the nurse says, "We're going to have to call you back." It was a female nurse this time. She says, "I don't know, what you said." She said, "But it got a reaction out of him." So I had always heard the term AFib, and so it caused an irregular heartbeat for him, which caused the machines to start going off, and then the nurses came in to see about him. And I joked to my mom, I think later on that day, I said it was like a date gone bad. I went in there, wiped my makeup off, I took the top off, put my t-shirt back on, and I was like, "This is a wrap." I had said, "I don't want to do this again," because it scared me. So I called that evening. I didn't ask her to go on Zoom, and the same nurse, she says, "You can't be afraid." I said, I'll Zoom with him tomorrow. I said that kind of shook me up. So the next day, I went through the same routine, got in there, and then I could call all during the night, in the morning, and check and see how he was doing. And the nurses were very, very kind to me. They allowed me to, whatever time, if I woke up at 2 in the morning, I was able to ask questions. And so fast forward to Sunday, February 14th, 2021, early morning hours. I've never slept with earbuds in my ear, and someone had sent me, I think, classical gospel piano music, classical piano gospel music, and it was like 12 hours of gospel music. I think I was 3 hours in of sound sleep. I had set a special tone on my ringtone for the hospital whenever they called. Remind me to tell you a story about that. And I had the earbuds in, and then all of a sudden, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear the special ringtone. So I jump straight up, and the nurse says, "Your husband," she started off with something, telling me he had another episode, et cetera, et cetera. She's telling me everything. I said, "Okay." And she said, she said, and we had to give him CPR. Thinking to myself, you should have led with that. She gave me 3 things that had happened, and then we had to give him CPR. She says, if his heart stops again, do you want us to restart it? I said, I want you to do everything you can to save his life. I said, should I come? She says, should I come there to the hospital? She said, I'll let you know. So I got up anyway and started getting dressed. My daughter and his son, came to the hospital with me, and it was very surreal. And so I think that moment probably stays in my mind more than anything else. But we were there, and so I really believe that he left here knowing he was loved. We had seen it on the news. And we, watched other people go through it. Nobody that we knew. That's the other interesting thing. We didn't know anybody that died of COVID. Anybody. And so for us to be the ones that experienced it was even more difficult. And I know it was hard for the doctors and nurses to have to make that decision. Even in the nursing home, people were passing away in nursing homes, and their families weren't able to see them. But it was very, very difficult. I remember asking him the day before the surgery, when he hadn't gone into a coma. I remember asking him. I said, "Is there anything you need from me, or anything you want from me?" I don't even remember the question. And he said, "No, I'm okay." He said, "Oh, I do want one thing." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I want a hug from my baby." And he always said, "Not baby, baby." And I said, "I'm going to give you all the hugs I can." As a matter of fact, when I got to the hospital that morning, that's the first thing I did. I said, "I promised you a hug, and this is what I have for you." And then I had been praying that for him to come home. I wanted him home for Valentine's Day, and that was my prayer. He went home, but it wasn't where I was expecting. Can I take a moment?
Take all this.
Yeah. I had been asking everyone to. This was the prayer I wanted everybody to pray. We want Carl to come home healed and whole, and I believe in those early morning hours that God healed him and made him whole and took him home. And so knowing that was the ultimate healing, I had to make peace with that. There are some days where I'm still making peace with that, but I believe God has a reason and a plan for all of this. I don't know. I was sharing with someone this morning, we don't always agree with the storms. We don't always like the storms, but we learn to ride them out. And God doesn't always calm the storm. Sometimes he calms his child. And that's what I have come to find out through all of this. I'm learning to be calm in the midst of every storm that I have. And there's nothing that I don't think is probably more devastating than the loss of a loved one that's unexpected. I had literally 19 days from the time he went in the hospital until the time that he passed away. First 2 years I was really in a fog, but I literally felt the fog lift about July or August of last year, and I literally felt the fog lift. I didn't even know I was in a fog, but I knew when it lifted. And so some of the life lessons I've learned are to love your loved ones with everything that you have in you. Let bygones be bygones. One of the things that we had discussed very early in our marriage was that we wouldn't go to bed mad, even if that meant we stayed up all night. And we learned to laugh at the silly things in life, and we realized that they tell you don't sweat the small things. It's all small things in the big picture of life, and love conquers all. I think that really drove that message home to me. I didn't remember any of the arguments that we ever had. I didn't remember any of the times that, I wanted to be a brat and slam the doors. Oh my gosh. I remember some of the times that he just allowed me to be who I was. I remember one time I got upset with him in a restaurant, and I stormed off, and I'm walking to the restaurant, to the door. I get to the front door, it's like, crap, I forgot he drove and dropped me off at the door. I don't even know where the car is parked. So I couldn't even make a dramatic exit. I could have, and it was raining outside. We were with another couple. So I go to make a dramatic exit, and I had to stand there at the door and wait for him. So those things, they make me smile just remembering those things. And so keeping his memory alive has really helped me. So I think if I had to share one piece of advice to anyone who's trying to either rebuild or reestablish or just re-engage, I think that's where I am now, just re-engaging in life, is to trust yourself. Trust yourself enough to know that no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you go through, no matter what you're going to face in the future, you have it within you to overcome any obstacle. There's nothing that can stop you if you feel that you're unstoppable. I never imagined life without Carl, but every morning I get up and I say, I hope you're proud of me, because I'm trying to do my best to keep pushing forward. And I often wondered if Carl would have been able to pick up and keep moving, because as women, we're nurturers. We know how to make things happen. We can do 5 and 6 things at a time and never miss a beat. But I often wonder if I had been the one to go before him, if he would have been able to just keep moving, because I've had to do it. And you don't know how strong you are until you're called on to be strong. And a lot of times I hear people say, oh, you're one of the strongest people I know, and you have so much strength. But it's not me. I know it's the God in me, and I have no doubt about that. Thank you. Thank you.